2 of my Starplayer painting. We're going to spend some time talking about the Snotlings and their very amazing team. So I hope you guys enjoy. And we are going to continue to move on and shuffle on with this pretty cool project. So if you don't remember what we were doing, I was looking at, the company is Gobbo. For folks that are not aware of that company, Gobbo Games, who makes some pretty unique, pretty awesome Bloodbowl models. So if you're looking for, they have some really awesome things out there. Awesome Starplayer models, awesome, just exceptional things that you can check out on their website. They have referee models. Like I took another look at their full range of models, and it's pretty pretty impressive. I'm not gonna lie. They just have a lot to offer, a lot to give you. And what I said it on the previous episode when we were starting to paint up this this Starplayer. They have what I like about them is that they do metal models. So they are really doing them in the more traditional GW style in that regard. So you're getting proper, really nice detailed, high detailed metal models, which I think is pretty hard to pull off in this day and age with metal models. You know, a lot of people have moved to plastic for a variety of different reasons. It's cheaper. And I think when you do plastic, there's a lot of other avenues on how you can go in and do plastic. So, to get that job done. Oh, and I have my spectacles, which I'm actually going to implore. So, geez Louise. But yeah, as always, sorry I didn't have a unique unboxing video today. I had to spend a little bit of time doing some wiring in my studio room so we can get back on track with some other videos. So now I've set it up so I can better do those things in that room. So it took away from my time that I could do some of my videos. So please be gentle. Please be forgiving, as I know you guys normally are. Which is having some patience with me. Like I said before, I'm probably going to have to go back and re-white some of the bumps, crevices, and such on this guy so I can get a nice, clean application of paint on those, because I want to make him look a little bit more unique as a squatling, as a squig. I don't want him to look like all the other squigs. So I want to give him some unique features, some unique things to set him apart from the other squigs. And I said it on the last episode, and hopefully I will get back into painting my goblin army. But my goblin, my Gits army, my squig herder or squig army, I actually did them with all the squigs being different colors, so they look like they were from different breeds of squigs, which I thought was a really unique, fun way to do the army. Just so, because I am always a huge fan of that concept. I like to do things that are a little off, so that when people are looking at my army, they're it has a unique flair to it. So it's just doesn't look like everybody else's army. So a lot of times I'll take GW color schemes or GW ideas, but I'll definitely make them my own. I won't completely do an army or units, 100% the way the GW models paint. And that's, it's just my way of doing things. There's no right answer to that. You should paint, obviously, you should paint your models the way that you would like to paint them. Because again, if it's your army and your models, you're going to sit and look at those on the table. So you should be happy with what's on the table. So, just because others may do it differently, or even GW themselves might do it differently, that doesn't mean you have to do it that way. So I'm just getting that red in, and like I said, you're going to see me go back in and do some other touch-ups and things as I get in there. I also find this technique that I'm doing where, I might go in with a color and then I'll go touch up the white, can be very, very useful. Because I don't know, for myself, all the years that I painted these models, I've always been a person who primes with black paint. I very rarely primed in white paint, because and I've said it a few times on this channel, blue paint has blue paint. Reason I said blue paint is I'm thinking about doing his shirt blue, but I don't know if I want to do the gits in blue. I mean, they're mostly going to be green, and I don't know, their loincloths, I might do them in a light blue. Might be interesting to do that. But yeah, priming stuff in white paint has, unfortunately, it has one very nasty thing about it, which is, and you probably are already seeing it to some extent, but you will see every mistake that you make when you prime in white. So when you paint a white model, you have to be very very, very careful, because you will see every mistake in the model. So all of those mistakes, especially if you don't paint precisely or clearly, or you leave gaps, you're going to see it right away. Whereas if you paint in black, you get the benefit of the black hiding a lot of the paint marks and hiding a lot of your imperfections, because you have the black, that's essentially creating a shadow, or it's creating that groove. So you got to be very, 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 very careful. But what's kind of cool about painting with the contrast paints is that if you make a mistake, you can just put white back on top of it and go over it. It's very easy to cover up the contrast paint if you make mistakes, versus when you're using, you're going about it in a more traditional GW way for that. It's also true with contrast paints that I always tell people, if you're getting started with contrast, a lot of people have some negative things to say about the contrast paint system, and I would say that the reason why most people say that is because they don't really know how to paint with it, and really understand what it's doing, because they think it was created to just kind of speed up painting, and it's absolutely not. It's actually, it was created to definitely, if you know what you're, if you've gotten better at painting and you've practiced, it definitely will speed up your painting, and you will get things to a reasonably, I'll call it reasonably good level. But what it also has done is that if you're somebody who knows how to paint, and I say knows, that implies also that you've taken the time to play with the contrast paints and gotten used to how to use them. It can really influence that decision, and you can do a lot of really cool things very quickly. Like you probably are already seeing in this model, there are some great things that have happened in here. There's also some bad things that have happened because the pooling and the way things have pooled isn't always great. So there is going to be some room to go back in and do that. And that's the thing that people lose track when they talk about the contrast paints. They don't realize that you can go back over them to darken them and to embellish them. So a lot of people don't know you can do that. And that becomes the really cool part. But like I said, I will definitely have to redo and just touch up some of the areas that I painted already. So I'm going to just take a tiny bit of white and just go over sorry, I'm doing that off camera. Just going to go over some of those areas where I was a little careless. You guys will see why I'm doing that in a minute, but you'll also quickly see what I mean by it. How white really is unforgiving about mistakes that you might have made. Because as you will see in a moment, so I'm just going in and touching up some of those areas, getting back to white, so I can move on and do some other stuff. Because all the little details are what are going to make this guy so much different than what others might have done for that. So I'm just going in and looking to see wait until you see what we're going to do with the horns once I get all of that redone, reconstituted. Oh, and now see, I've just done it again. I went back in, I was trying to fix a mistake that I made previously. I actually made it worse by covering up the eye again. And I call that the constant struggle, where you fix a detail, you go back in and you try to put something close to another color, and you end up botching it. Now, in the case of this, I went with the dark red first. I didn't really have a choice with this because I went with a darker squig red. Traditionally, when you're working with the contrast paints, you do want to try to get in the habit of going light to dark. You don't want to go dark to light. And you're going to see how I'm going to have to do that, which what this starts to become when you do it this way is the way that I use contrast sometimes, which is I'm using it really as a base primer. So I'm going through and I'm basing out the red because I'm going to put other stuff on top of it. We're going to use white. We're going to use other tricks to get those colors in there. But you guys will see as I go. My hope is we're going to get a little bit more of this squig done. Then we start focusing on the goblin on top. And it's funny, I said I was going to do this video, and then I totally did not go and get the stupid Starplayer card so I could actually tell you what the name of the Starplayer is. I keep forgetting that. And again, this is a Starplayer for the Snotling team. You see our other members of the Snotling team hanging out at Pump Wagon and stuff, which we will be painting. I'm going to do a whole series on painting them for the channel, and I don't think they shouldn't take that long. Like stuff like the Pump Wagons and the Starplayer, they're going to take a minute. But the rest of it should not. I'm always a sucker for... I like doing the tongues of the squigs like purple or... Oh, geez. I just went into a different color, which I didn't mean to do that. Again, I want this squig. I like the squigs. All my squigs that I paint, I'm a big fan of them having like a very vibrant color. I like them to be vibrant, and in general, I'm of the mind I like goblin armies to be very vibrant. I like them to be vibrant armies, vibrant colored. Actually, if you want to, when you're done watching this video, if you want to go to my website, you can actually see an example of some of the goblins, some of the squig riders, and the squig marauders that I've painted. And you get an idea of what I was talking about with the you get an idea of what I was talking about with the different colored squigs. And if you guys are liking what you're watching, please consider potentially following the channel. That's going to be the best way to know when we're live. As I said, I've said it in quite a lot of videos, and I do promise that I will stop it. I am going to try to not do these videos so late, so we'll have a little bit more of a routine or a schedule, so it will be easier to know when we're going to be doing these things, because right now that's not necessarily the case, and I want to make sure that you folks do know when we're live, because I really want, not only do I want to see obviously enjoy and love and thank you for your support and being here watching what we're doing, but I also want you guys to contribute. I want you guys to ask questions, and I'd love to help people with possible painting projects they're working on, like really take on some different things that you might be doing, and do that as well when you're watching and sitting with the channel. So don't want to just be a pretty face that's painting. Just mixing up my red here, get that a little bit more vibrant. Okay. And I think I started saying it, but I didn't actually finish saying it. But contrast paints, you do in general want them to sit for about, they really should dry for a half hour. And the reason why you want to do that, I got a little messy on the bottom. The reason you want to do that is because they will, the color will change as they dry. So you'll notice as this red has dried, it has definitely changed, and that's why you're getting some of those nice places where it caught the mark. getting darker. It got into those areas. It got into the you know, the grooves, and that's really what the whole idea of the contrast paints are, and that's why it's this painting system that you could theoretically slap, you know, a few coats of paint on something and potentially walk away with something that looks halfway decent for a table. But you know, as we're gonna find, and as you guys will see, we're gonna take it a step further with this guy. So I need my really small brush because I'm gonna get into some of those areas. Oh wow, this brush needs to be cleaned. Sorry guys, we're taking a cleaning break. As everything becomes crazy. You know, and that's a good lesson in itself. You know, you really want to make sure that you take the time to clean adequately your brushes. If you start to see, you know, that you're not getting, we call it, you know, a pretty nice sharp point on a brush, that means that the brush probably has paint dried in it and stuff, and you want to beat. I like this particular water cup from Citadel because it has a little put a goblin under there. It has a little for lack of a better term, I used to call, well, I went to art school and took painting, so I call it a beater box because that's what it is in oil painting, which is basically something that artists created, which, to explain it in the most rudimentary of terms, and you can make one very easily. It's actually, if you take a garbage pail and just put like a drying rack on the bottom of it, you can use that to beat brushes out so you get all paint out of them. This has little grooves on the bottom, so you can do exactly that. You can lightly, you know, get that brush beaten so that you can then pit it. So that's calling when you get it into a point, and you see how you see those bristles expanding. If you see bristles that are not sitting nice and like that, it usually means there's paint inside of there that's causing it to do that. It also can be a sign that the brush is starting to break down and you have to probably buy another brush, which for a lot of these detail brushes, I go through them very quickly because I use a lot of detail brushes when I paint. Because a lot of the models, you know, at least I find, and some of you may differ in your opinion, you know, you do occasionally paint vehicles or things that have, you know, big areas to paint, but for the most part we're all kind of dredging ourselves in those details. So that's why I find that I go through the detail brush quite a bit. So what I'm doing now is I'm just trying to go through and I'm trying to find all of these little guys and just really tighten up everything, because I'm going to be introducing another color, and like I said, I'm going to come back in with white to just grab some of these little bumps and pustules, because I like to like I said before, I like on the squigs that I'm doing to make them a little bit more unique. So I like to play around with some of the ridges and things and give them slightly different color variations and things like that. So it'll just look like a red squig, because you could just paint all your squigs red and that's fine. I mean, that's what traditionally they look like, but I want our squig to have a little bit more personality. Especially because on the Starplayer card, it, you know, it looks like, geez Louise. Alright, I put a little too much paint in there. That's okay. I'm just going to go easy. Because it's tough. Basically, I want to introduce a fair amount of paint because I want it to really get in those grooves, because when you guys see what I'm going to do, with the areas that I'm leaving white, it's going to make a little bit more sense why I wanted it to be a little tighter. And I really wanted it to grab the bottom of each of these. And also I want to have a pooling happen there. Sorry. I want to have a pooling happen there so I can create a certain type of effect. I'm just going to grab a little bit of this. Just go down that way. There we go. Now, again, I'm going to let that dry a little bit. And then I may go in there and do a few more things, but not right this second. Now, also, I wanted to talk a little bit about the thing on my head and what this is. So this I'm using a magnifier to help me really see those details. You know, when you guys watch any commission or professional painter for minis, and they get these like amazing detailed faces and stuff, that is all with stuff like this. And you have to use it because you can't see on that level, especially when we talk about faces and things like that. And when you start to really look at a model, and you know, if you want to start to add, you know, other little effects like, let's say, wear or dirt or sand or other things, you guys can see what I've been working on. So I'm just going in and, you know, just looking at it from different angles and making sure that I am getting, because you got to turn it. You have to turn your model when you paint it. I say it all the time to people that are starting out learning how to paint. Remember that what you're painting is a three-dimensional model. So you have to look at it from other angles, because you can look at it from one angle and be like, oh, I did an awesome job. Look at how great I did that. Look how close, look how I lined all that up. Oh my God, it looks great. But then you look at it from a different side and you're like, oh, I missed an entire part, or I didn't get this to go, exactly where it was supposed to go, or, I gotta change how I did this. So, and like I said before, I'm gonna have to go through some of those horns. I'm gonna have to redo some of them, just to get the red off, because when I went one angle, so that's like a great example. Like I look at it from this angle and there's all red there, but I had to do that to get my nice, to get that pooling where I want it, because you guys are gonna see why in a minute. Oh, we got a lot of folks watching. You guys should be totally throwing up some comments. I don't mean that to pressure anybody. I just want to hear from you all. I'd love to hear what people are working on. I always ask that question, like, what are some projects that you may or may not be working on? What's your next, if you guys are here for Bloodbowl specifically, is there a team that you're working on? Are there, not to say that you can't do this for any of GW's other games, but Blood Bowl always comes with the really cool piece of it, which is a lot of folks do customize or model bashing and other stuff. I'm always a fan to hear other projects you might have. And again, this is Gabo Games who made this miniature. This is actually not a GW miniature. I wanted to do a little painting series on this, and I'm actually going to send this to them when I'm done. Not the model, but pictures of the model, because I'm really ecstatic about their models. I think the sculpts are really awesome, and they do so many variations. They do a lot of of course, I should preface, they focus on star players that do not have physical models, that GW has never done. So, I'm a big fan of that, because they have, for instance, Nurgle models. They have Nurgle star players. They have you know, their take on the Goblin star players. So if you're a veteran Blood Bowl player, you know, the original Goblins, which are still around, you know, even though they made the Gobbo team, that does not errata, you know, that does not make the other Goblin team not exist or go away. You know, I always to explain to people the Snotling versus Goblin team is that, you know, for folks that are not aware, in GW's lore, Snotlings are essentially run-to-your goblins. So they're you know, smaller, weaker goblins. So they are still goblins, but I'm just gonna go through and I'll pull out these little bumps. The horns I won't, but the bumps I will. It just makes it easier because I can go back and just pull them out. Alright, so far so good. You know, we definitely got all of the red sections. Got that really nice purple for the tongue. Because like I said, I'm always a fan with the squigs. I like the squigs to be very colorful. You know, because like I said, it's very traditional to do red squigs, but I don't like doing red squigs for my entire army. I've never been a fan of that type of stuff. And you can see those pictures if you go online. What time are we rocking? Yeah, so this is going to be another one of those videos where I'm going to try to paint for at least an hour. I will very much so tomorrow night be going back to basics. Oh, I didn't even realize that. I don't know if you guys caught that. He's holding horns. He's actually holding the horns of the guy. I was trying to figure that out. I'm like, because I don't see a strap. He's actually holding the horns of it. That's crazy. That's crazy. Well, because they're goblins and they're nuts. That is 100% crazy. He's literally holding the horns of a goblin. The horns of a squig to ride it. It's just nuts. Like I said, look at the expression. Like, great expression on the goblin. Great expression on him. You know, hands down, just great models. And they do coach models. So for folks that don't know, in Blood Bowl, you know, you can buy a coach, you can buy an assistant coach, you can buy, you know, all of, you know, the game. Really, the models, to have the models, it's nice because it physically, you know, you can put them on your sidelines and it physically, you know, looks like you have a proper team that's on the sidelines, you know, medic and such. But yeah, in the game, they're just they're just static stats. They're just things you can do or things you can enable in certain places. Damn, it's looking good. And we will also get back to finishing Hellboy, because I really desperately want to finish the Hellboy model so you guys can actually see us play, you know, the Hellboy board game. I'm gonna have to. I should wait before I do this. So going back to what I was saying before, this is where my arrogance of going a little too quick, kind of is going to show through. I should have done these first. Because what you will see is that if I would have done these actually first rather than second, I could have just painted the red over. So I could have essentially approached it and been a lot sloppier with these, because then I could have just went around and fixed it with the red, because the red would cover this color, whereas you'll see as I go to the red, it will not cover over the red. But you're getting an idea of what I'm going to be doing with this guy. I love doing bones or horns or things with skeleton horde. So I should be calling out those paints to you guys, and I've been totally bad at doing that. But skeleton horde is what I'm using for the horns. Blood angel red is what I use for this. Magnus purple, I think is what that one's called. And I've started to get into using skeleton horde. I use skeleton horde for horns. I'm actually going to use it for the goblin's teeth. I like doing that so you get like gritty teeth effects if you want to do that. So you can see how awesome that skeleton horde starts to look when you put it in there, because it breaks up that red. And like I said, we'll do a little touch up of the red as well. And that's where, going back to what I was saying before about contrast, a lot of people think the contrast paints are just simple paints and they do this magical thing, but if you start to learn how to use them, you can actually get some really dynamic effects that you can't get with traditional GW paints. And then you're going to see me actually use some of the traditional Citadel paints too. So we're going to use all the paints in our gamut to get some really cool stuff. And what's nice is if you do this, like I said, because the skeleton horde is so light, you can literally be sloppy with it, because when you go over the other stuff with a darker paint, it's going to cover it up, because they are translucent paints. And then that was why I was so adamant about getting the red so close, because I wanted to look proper, like these horns are coming out of the actual creature, so they're sitting the right way, and you have a nice pooling and dark color right underneath, so you guys can see where we're going with that. And then you're going to see what difference I'm going to do for the eyes, but you can already see very different look for a squig, and I like that. I want him to look different. I don't like my squigs, like I said, to look, like every other GW painted squig. Want him to have a little bit more character. You know what? Because this, and I say this all the time when I'm doing models, the minute you paint the eyes, the model will come to life. So once you get some color into those eyes, you're gonna always why I said I always like to do unique things. So we have all these beautiful yellow eyes, right? And I did this on one of my other squigs. It's actually one of my Marauder murder squig guys. I did this same thing, which is I did the effect like he had. I don't know why this is so watery. What is going on? Okay, that did not work out the way it was supposed to. So the idea was to have one eye look like it was like not working properly, but I'm gonna have to go in with red to fix that now because it just didn't come off right. I don't know why my blue decided to get really watery, but it did, which is really annoying. Alright, I don't know what just happened. None of that went the way it was supposed to go. Alright. Alright, so he's got one eye missing because my eye is just deciding. Yeah, but see what I meant by all of your mistakes. You see all of your mistakes when you prime and white. All of them. Yeah, I don't know why that did that. That's yeah, we can definitely fix it. Now with the contrast, like I said, you gotta wait for it to dry. So I'm gonna try to go in and fix some stuff, but it may be a fool's errand because, and this might actually be, I'm gonna try something. And I use this technique sometimes when I'm having trouble seeing how to fix something. I'll just go in and I'll paint the whole thing one color, because sometimes seeing it in a different color just pops what's wrong. And you know, going back to something I said in the last video, since this is not a GW model, I don't necessarily have a schematic all the time. I don't always have a schematic of what I'm looking at and what it's supposed to look like. You know, so what the model actually is supposed to look like. But you can see just a little tweak. But see how the white, if you leave any of that white, if you leave any of that white, it starts to make all the stuff you do not make sense. But the minute it's nice and perfect, yeah, what part of it is that he's got very small eyes. I didn't realize just how small those eyes on this model were. They look a lot bigger than they really are, but they're not. So you can already see, look at that character just popping out, like super duper big character, and just a very different look for our squig. Alright, I'm doing something dangerous. I got like 5 different paints open. We're gonna rectify that right now because this always makes me nervous. when I open like 3 different contrast paints, because I sometimes get into a rhythm like I'm doing now, and I'm like, ooh, I'll jump around, and sometimes I jump around colors, and there's a good thing for that and a bad thing for that, because contrast paints, and if you guys have started using them, probably, I'm sure there's a lot of people in the chat that can throw an amen up there, or throw a yeah, you're totally right. But spilling contrast paint is one of the worst things on the planet. You will probably lose almost the entire bottle from one spill. So you want to be real careful that so that's why you probably noticed, I tend to work with one color at a time. There's also another rational reason for doing that. The other rational reason for doing that is that goes back to the drying piece that I was talking about earlier. If you work in that sort of mentality where you let colors dry, you can go back in and start working on those colors differently. So then it'll be dry, and then you can go back over it with either the same color, as you're going to see me do in a little bit, to darken certain things, or in the case of some of the corrections I've had to do, it makes it easier to do those as well. But you can see, just in 2 sessions, I've only been working on this model for maybe an hour and a half. The contrasts really do speed up the process when you know how to apply them and use them. Because I'm going to embellish him a little bit. Like I've said before, I do a lot more to most of my models. I paint most of my models to a higher standard. Because like I said before, when I go on a battlefield, or in this case, the pitch, the models you're looking at are calling cards. They're little walking business cards, because if people look at your army or look at your team and go, whoa, that's really cool, I really like that color scheme, I really like how that came out, that's gonna be someone who might hire me and say, I would love for you to paint my army, because so it's kind of crazy. But if you're out there and you're thinking, I say it all the time, if you're out there and you're thinking, I love this hobby, I do this really well, or I paint really well, really think about the models you do, and if you can say with confidence that you really paint every model to special character, larger model status, then I would say you're ready for commission painting. If you feel like you still cut corners or don't necessarily paint everything to spec, you may not be ready for it. Now, that being said, when you do commission painting, you're going to end up doing tiers, and so folks, who want the more unique, detailed painted army, well, then obviously that's going to be one type of pay scale for completing something like that. But a lot of times when people, you have to remember, this is already potentially a very expensive hobby. To then get something commission painted on top of that, for some people that's not in the cards. We don't all feel we can do that. Because you have to remember, when you go to talk to a commission painter to paint your army, you're talking to an artist, and as you guys see in these videos, it takes time to paint, especially if you want to paint, you want something unique or done with a little bit more to it than than just slapping some quick paint on it. Because like I said, with the contrast paints, you can do a fairly decent job with a couple of coats of paint and get something that, I would argue could be table ready very quickly. To the point where it's going to look decent. It's not going to look. It may not look like $1,000 in the sense that it's really highly detailed and it looks, it's got that realistic, atmospheric paint job. But it won't embarrass you off the table. You'll have something that will look nice. Alright, I'm going to go back in with the white because I did mess up a lot of these horns. I'm noticing a lot of white on it. A lot of white. A lot of color on it. So I'm going to have to go in. Just do some little edits. So all I'm doing now is I'm just going in and I'm taking the white paint and I'm just sort of you could almost think of it like re-priming, just going through and getting stuff back to white, so that when I go make a pass with the contrast paint, it'll just do its job. And now, usually, I am a big fan of doing this step beforehand. And now I'm just going in, and I'm not going to go like super crazy, but I'm definitely going to take some of these little dots. So I'm just bringing out some of the little, just to give a little bit of, I want to do a few of them as like little yellow, like pimples, so that he looks a little bit more vicious and he looks a little bit more fantasy. I have a tendency with the goblins. I do them. Somebody said it to me once. They said your paint scheme with them is very oops. I tend to get very like comic bookish with them. Because for a while when you played goblins, whether you're playing in Age of Sigmar or if you're playing in, well, you didn't really play them in Age of Sigmar until recently, but when you played them, they were, they had a little bit more of a comedic flair. And not to say that you lost if you played goblins, but you kind of did. They were not as competitive. They were not as competitive a team as they are now. So for a lot of people, goblins were their more casual team. So so that Yeah, I figured since I'm already doing this, let me just do a few of these. Again, I don't want to go overboard, but that'll give some other color to it and things like that. But you can see how easy it is to tidy up. So I just did all of it red, and then you just go back in and you pick out those areas that you want to focus on for other stuff. But yeah, so I have a tendency to take them into a very comedic, comic direction. Even more so when you guys once I get more things painted up, you're gonna see some very comedic original content that I'm gonna put together with some things. So I'm gonna just get the horns. I'm gonna get the horns done, and then we're probably gonna call it quits with our friend here for tonight. But you can already see just how awesome this is coming out, and that's working. That like broken eye. Actually, while we're on the subject of so you can see what I was going for, and this was the effect I was going to try to go for, was to have like a almost like he's got like non-working retina, so not like non-working eyes, whereas the other side he's got perfect vision, but he's got like some broken eyes or things that are not working properly here. I like doing little things like that, or putting battle damage. I'm gonna put some blood in the teeth too. Again, just to give the squig like a little bit more realism. I like to put little real or things, like for instance when I did let me take this off. When I did Captain America for Marvel Crisis Protocol, I put a lot of battle damage on his shield. So I put it so they looked like there were scrape marks, like he was throwing it at someone, and just been through a little bit more of a hellish battle versus, squeaky clean, perfect looking. I like doing stuff like that. And same thing with my my squigs. Like I like to put like blood effects in their teeth, so it looks like they've been biting and like eviscerating people and stuff. Because when you really like start to look at the Goblin team or Goblin army, you don't realize until you start reading the lore, like that is essentially what they do. They get these squigs live in caves. These are cave squigs, and they literally just trap them, and they're extremely vicious, horrible creatures. They're just wild, vicious creatures, and their way of basically controlling them is to basically point them in a direction and have them run at people. And then if they're ever riding them, that's just them literally just throwing themselves on the back of a completely wild animal that they have very little control over, which is why they not in a Blood Bowl game, but in the war games, Age of Sigmar, that's why they always do their movement as random. So they don't move in random directions, although that can happen with certain squig units. But They do it actually with that they make you roll dice to see how far they actually did move. So there is a little bit of a random factor, and that in lies where you start to get the argument about why goblins are not. If you're a goblin player, there were some. That's why it was hard. I'm not gonna say impossible for you to win, but it was definitely harder for you to win because there were moments where some of your units would not necessarily perform the way that you thought they might. So you might walk through the battlefield and have a very different game because your units just didn't do what they were supposed to do. And there's some of that in Blood Bowl. They definitely have created the same feel in a Blood Bowl game if you play snotlings or teams with goblins on them, or they definitely carried that tradition in Blood Bowl as well. So they still have that there because their units, some of their units do not move the same way that other units move, and so I already see like I'm gonna have to go in there and fix some of this. So I'm just going back over some of these horns, but I'm already noticing that a few of them I'm gonna have to do a little bit of a touch up because there's a little bit of red on them. But you can see how nice that looks. Look how nice those horns look, on there. And I'm gonna get some of those other things going, but just how it breaks up the color. And then, like I said, I'm also going to use this skeleton horde, which is what I'm using to do the horns. I'm going to use that on the goblin's teeth as well, which should, but I may actually have to going to make him look like he doesn't really have good dental hygiene, and I'm okay with that. And like I said, guys, if you like what you're seeing, if you like the channel and like the conversation, please consider following. That's how you know when we're live. We do a ton of different things on this channel. So I am a multifaceted channel. I don't just do one thing. I do drawing, I do model building, model painting, we do board gaming, we do oh geez, I'm forgetting what we do. I'm going to be doing definitely original content coming up. We do RPG sessions. We do, all kinds of crazy stuff on here. And I'll be doing a lot of reviews of Mantic Games and their products. I'm actually talking to a few other companies, so I'll be doing some reviews of their stuff. We do toy unboxings. We do Magic the Gathering unboxings. We're gonna play some different Magic the Gathering stuff. So yeah, just so many different things to choose from, and the only way you're gonna know that is if you do follow the channel. If you are with us when we're live, you know, and then of course take a look at the links you see down below as well. You can see a link to my website. You can also see a link to my Patreon. Those are some great ways to support us as well. Those are monetary ways to support. So as I've been talking, you know, I am a model painter and commission painter, so you can hire me for those services if you feel so inclined. Or you can, I'm an artist. I do illustration and drawing. I also do my own independent comic books, which is what my Patreon is really centered around. So if you want to go and support any of that cool stuff, or want to see any of that cool stuff, you know, check out those links below as you go, because you may see some stuff you really dig and like. And like I said, it's a great way to support us monetarily, but I know that's a tough thing for a lot of folks to do right now, so I understand. That's why, like I said, following, sharing, and liking us does not cost anything. And it gets us into more people's little tiny boxes, aka computers and mobile devices, so that they can make those decisions of potentially supporting us in those other ways, or do even cooler things like share us with other people. Because my goal is to do this on a much more full-time basis for you guys, but in order to purchase the models, the paints, the things that I need to do all this, it don't come cheap. Because, you know, although Mantic Games, which I thank them a lot for all that they've sent me already, which I am desperately trying to get through and show you guys, and I will do a better job of having that, because I took a little hiatus, like about a week, because I was actually working on the studio, moving things around, and getting things in a better spot. Also had some family stuff going on, so I do apologize for the folks that already have been with me that maybe felt there were a lot less videos, or I wasn't on as much as I normally am. So I apologize for that. You know, sometimes life just happens at once, and you gotta just take a minute and figure that out, and then you can come back and do your stuff. So now I'm back doing my stuff, and I've been pretty good because I've given you guys a video every day. So of one shape or form, and we've already gotten 2 painting videos in. We actually did a live board gaming video, so if you want to see us actually playing a board game for the first time with a bunch of people in one room, you should go check that video out too. And we played we actually played the Funkoverse game, which was pretty cool. It had some good times. You know, I would like, and I wish that the folks at Funko would work on maybe a more multiplayer way to play the game, because as it stands right now, it really is designed for 2 people. There are ways to play it with more than 2 people, but you can tell that the game designers really did design it for 2 people. The way you get around playing multiple people in the Funkoverse game, not to go too far down that rabbit hole, is that each player controls a character, but you can have them all on the same team. So, oh wow, this is really coming out. Yeah, I like the decisions we made on the eyes. I like, you know, I'm gonna really work on those damaged eyes a little bit more. So I'll put some other layers to that. We're gonna put layers on the eyes that are a little different, but you can see how gorgeous that squig is looking. And now that he's got his eyes moving, and our goblin's starting to we got the teeth in there. You know, we got some nice stuff going on there. It is starting to come together. And by the way, I totally went into a whole other segue and point, which I totally apologize, because that probably didn't make any sense. Because I basically started talking about, and you can see what I just did there. That's actually a really good trick to go over. So you saw how I just flicked a little bit more paint in there, and actually darkened that area on the eyes. You're going to see me do that a lot, because I'm going to want, and then I am going to come back in, and you're going to see some highlights done too. But you can see that nice, gorgeous, like, all you got to do is just go in with a little bit more paint, and you can accent those areas just by making the paint a little bit darker. That's all you're doing. And that's the secret to contrast paints. The secret is that you can go back over them to make them darker. And a lot of people who paint with them don't know that, which is why they walk away with a slightly inaccurate conclusion that the contrast paints are too light. They are meant to go on very light so that you can go back over them. So that's why, and that's what's cool about them, because you can go over them multiple times and you're never putting a lot of paint on your model. So you're never it's never like covering all of the grooves or the details. So you can be a little heavy-handed with the paint. And then you can go back and emphasize it. The other thing about the contrast paints that a lot of people don't understand too is that like we talked about before, it's a light to dark system. So you tend to want to go light to dark. I've painted with these so much that I don't need to do that. I've gotten good enough that I can, for the most part, not have to do just the dark first. But that's the other piece, is planning. So if you know you're going to do a certain effect, you may want to layer your paints a certain way. So look at how nice that's looking. And we're going to do some stuff. I'm going to do some other stuff to emphasize other things, but damn, I am liking how this is looking. And again, for a special character, not too shabby. Not too shabby at all. Alright, well, we've gone for about an hour, a little over an hour. I'm going to call it on that video. We got a lot of nice progress. We can already see all of this nice detail coming up. We're going to get some more detail on some other areas, get the teeth going. We're going to start painting in our goblin. I got to see what I want to do. I'm heeing and hawing a little bit about him because I want it to match the other snotlings on the team and how they're going to look. For the most part, most of the snotlings are very like simple in how they're put together. So in their clothes and their dress. So I don't think I'm going to have to go too crazy with this stuff and with them. Get my fingers messy. This is actually a good thing to go over too. When you have the contrast paints, you'll find that the contrast paints, you're gonna get a lot of residue that crops up. So the first thing I'll put out there is that you are essentially losing a lot of the contrast paint, which is a little frustrating about them. They have a tendency to spill into the containers. But what you do also want to do is you do want to make a conscious effort, as annoying as it is, to get that stuff out of the lid. So specifically, you want to try to get it out of the groove. I'm sorry, I'm not showing you. Because if it's in that groove, what's going to happen is when you go to close the pod, you're going to see it's hard to close. Now, you could probably smash it down and get it in there, but you're letting essentially air get inside of there, and what that's going to eventually do is dry out your paint. So I don't have the tool that I normally use, which, I hate to say it, I usually use an X-Acto knife to go in there and get that out, but sometimes I get lucky and I can do it with this, but if it gets hard enough, then it won't work. Yeah, so you guys are probably hearing that. But if you do the X-Acto knife, you can get really in there. The trick you got to be careful with is obviously you got to manhandle it a little bit, and you don't want to cause a situation where you make your paint spill all over the place, which therefore now you just lost almost all of it. But you do want to get in the habit of doing that. It's a good thing to do on even those smaller Citadel paints, because you'll notice your paints will stay longer if you clean them, which is why you really should use a palette where you take the paint out of the container and put it into a palette. But I don't know, I like to paint I do it from the pods, and a lot of people give me dirty ass shifty looks when I do that, but I like doing it that way. It I don't know, it just makes more sense. And obviously the other benefit to not doing it the way I'm doing it is that you don't contaminate your paints. So if you're doing mixing, and you should, and you'll see me do mixing later, and you probably see some remnants of me mixing on my palette, I am going to do that to make some lighter shades, tones, or other colors. All right, well, I think we did a pretty awesome job. We got some nice detailing going in here. We got our eyes started, which we're going to do a little bit more to get them done. But he's starting to come along. Very nice, very vibrant, very aggressive cave squig. Because, of course, this is Bloodbowl, where that squig's coming at you, bro. At you, at you, at you. Imagine that, like, in a football game coming at you because you have the ball. Is that not crazy? That is crazy. All right, guys. Well, thank you for watching. We're going to really speed through these guys. Probably the next painting video, we're going to do some Mantic stuff. I want to get back to the Hellboy miniatures and get those painted. I also have Warhammer 40K stuff that I have to get painted. So we're gonna do a lot. But with my new setup, my new studio, I hope you guys are enjoying the videos better. Hope the sound is better. I feel like the sound, the lighting, everything is just much better because there's a lot more control, and you can see what I'm doing, and I can work comfortably. I don't feel cramped and crazy like I used to. But thank you guys again for watching. Again, if you do like what you've heard and what you've seen, please consider following. And it looks like, oh, Lowrec 426. Thank you for the follow. And I appreciate that. And if you are interested in finding out more, you can see other links below. Check those out. Like I said, the follow is wonderful. It's free. It doesn't cost anything, and you can be with us live. Please think about contributing also by ask questions. Please don't hesitate to throw comments or even message me via Twitch. If you have questions about different projects or things that you're doing, I'm always a fan. I always love to teach people new tricks or give advice and suggestions, which I have for quite a few people's armies and stuff that they're doing. And then also, there are other links below there to monetarily support the channel. The monetary support, what I'm really trying to do there, I'm not trying to do it to be greedy and grab money. Which is not what I'm doing. I mean, the reason I'm doing all of this is that we're all dealing with crazy situations in the world. I want to bring content and fun and really bring gaming and keep gaming alive. And there's some other awesome announcements that I hope, from all your support and following that I have online, that I can build that into something even cooler and greater, both for my community and for the world. Excuse me. But yeah, so what the monetary support's really about is to allow me to keep getting the models, getting the things that I'm reviewing, getting the materials and supplies that I need. All of that does require money. Like I said, not all companies are awesome like Mantic Games, who are sending me so many great products and things to look at. So, right now I do a lot of that out of pocket. And I'm also looking, like I said, to do this full time for you guys. So consider following monetarily. That can come in two forms. One is my personal website, where you can see more of my model painting, as well as my art that I do. You can hire me for commission work through there. Or you can check out my Patreon, which I'm hoping to have the third strip up very shortly of what we call funny papers. So you have multiple stories that are going to be multi-strip episodic stories that I do independently. And another special project that I'm working on, which I can't talk about yet. But if you want to support that, there's some limited time spots where you can get access to everything that I'll be doing, and I'll be a lot better about putting up some of the behind the scenes stuff and some other access for particular art. And also, you can, just even support me as simple as $1 a month, as like a donation, just to keep the art going, to keep everything moving. Again, that's monetary ways to support. If you can, please do. But I understand right now that is a tough order to ask anybody. $1 a month, $2 a month, it can be tough for a lot of folks. So I get it. My other goal is to also get merchandise to you guys and have merch opportunities through Patreon. But I have to get a little bit more following and support first before I can start doing some of those things. All right, guys. Thank you all for watching. Again, please wash your hands, stay safe, and please respect all the folks that are out there, because without all of us working together, we're never going to fix the problems that are in front of us. And in order to get out of 2020 with, to say it in a light way, but definitely doesn't encompass the year, not to have any more catastrophic things happen, we have to band together as people and become one as a world, a society, and as a race. And when I say race there, I mean humans. We are all human beings. It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter who you are. We all need to get along and get together, because together we are always going to be stronger. Apart, we are never going to be as strong as we can be. So thank you guys again, and I'll see you at the next video.